Hey, folks, you're listening to the Wrecking Crew Comedy Podcast with Vito D'Amico, and my co-host today, of course, is the one and only Mykeru. Say hi, Mykeru.
Howdy.
Excellent. Well done. I was worried. I thought he was half the time I set this up, he's never there. And today we have a special guest, somebody that I've followed her stuff actually a while ago, but saw little bits and pieces of it. And then once I knew I had her down, that's nothing sexual or anything like that. It's just once I knew we would get an interview with her, I just couldn't stop watching her videos, and that's what I do. I get addicted to somebody. It's really weird, but she's got amazing. She's like a pit bull when it comes down to figuring out stuff and getting to the nut of the matter. The one and only Feminism LOL. That's her channel on YouTube, but her name is Diana Davison is here with us today. Say hi, Diana.
Hello. Apparently it's Diana Pitbull Davison.
Yeah, man. Nobody.
Happy to be.
And you do. You are a pit bull. Like, you don't hold. Like, it's not like you're making up shit. It's pretty amazing how you will find stuff. And for an example, the famous Ghomeshi case. I mean, and there's a few other people too you got to give credit to, but you really showed it for what it was, you know.
Essentially, it's evidence that somebody was lying to the public, and then I'm just like, I think they're lying. I'm going to go find out. And every moment of the investigation into this case revealed bigger and bigger lies.
Well, there's an incuriousness in the English-speaking world, because not only do Americans not know who Ghomeshi is, I was talking to my aunts who were visiting, they didn't know, and they're from Britain. So is it possible to give like a quick summary of who Ghomeshi is?
Ghomeshi, yes, Ghomeshi is, he would be like, God, how can you, he had like a really, I never was a fan of his show, believe it or not. I just didn't give a shit, but he had a really big, successful show on the CBC, okay, where he would get artists from all over the world, and if you were a big artist, you had to what was his show called? The Q?
Q.
Sure. So he would do this show, The Q, and he was CBC's, think of like NBC or big American channels, CBS or whatever, their top, somebody that, what would it be, like a Dick Clark kind of like just...
Yeah, I mean, just from outside looking in, it looked like the Q show was CBC's flagship show.
Yes.
For hip, music-oriented or current events discussions.
Yes.
And Jian Ghomeshi was this kind of laid-back, casual, hip interviewer.
Yeah.
Who managed to get some of the top people, the top acts, to sit down and just have a conversation with him.
Yeah, he was great at that. I didn't like him because he was successful, right? So it was that whole jealous thing with me. But
apparently there's a lot of that going around.
But he was... he
kind
was
of the it guy in terms of trying to freshen up the image of the CBC, going from, CBC for old farts to a young, progressive kind of place to be, right?
Yeah, like you had...
You're hip, you're tuning into Q. And
the CBC is actually a state-owned Canadian television station,
That's right.
So for Americans, that would suggest something like PBS on steroids.
Yes, exactly. That's pretty much it. So he was their poster child, and what happened was he got charged for sexual assault?
Well, that actually came later. So, and I didn't actually listen to Q, and I didn't really know who Jian Ghomeshi was until February of this year, near the end of his whole, the big Ghomeshi hoax that went down.
But his
accusations were actually a journalist named Jesse Brown, who runs a show called, I actually hate calling him a journalist. He's a sensationalist who runs a show called Canada Land, proposing to be a media watchdog. And Jesse used to work at the CBC. He proposed his show Canada Land to CBC to produce, and they turned it down. And as a result, he did it himself and spends most of his time trying to destroy all of the bigger mainstream media outlets who never really ended up employing him.
Right. So he's, to me, do you feel like like Jesse Brown is kind of like just a jealous, like work with Ghomeshi a little bit, wished he could kind of be a Ghomeshi, and then once that was done, just thought, here's a way of fucking this guy up. I'm going to figure out a way of destroying this guy.
He's actually stated his jealousy. He interviewed the host that took over for Jian Ghomeshi when he was finally fired from CBC, and he says on that podcast, I'm really jealous of you. And on Canada Land, he tried to create an arts and entertainment show, and his host quit on him at the last minute right after they announced they were going to be launching this thing, and that show was intended to compete with Q.
Right.
So, yeah, there's definitely jealousy in there.
And a vested interest. And I take it from what you've written, what you've done on your videos about Jesse Brown, is that he's not a fair broker. He's not someone who is just a conduit for people approaching him and saying, I have a story. He actually seems to have been soliciting.
Yeah,
well,
the witnesses and the kind he shapes the kind of story he wants. It seems to start with a conclusion and then look for evidence.
Yeah, like so people don't know, Ghomeshi was charged with, I believe, assault, battery, and fucking sexual assault,
and one charge of choking to overcome resistance.
So, so like people that don't know that. Rough sex, right?
It started with an ex-girlfriend contacting Jesse Brown and saying, hey, look, Jian Ghomeshi is into really disgusting, kinky sex that's abusive towards women. And one of Jesse's big go-tos to try and, smear someone's reputation is charges of sexual assault, be it an individual or be it an institution, saying that they're sexist and that the work environment is toxic for women. It's a regular accusation he makes against people. So he gets one ex-girlfriend, and then the two of them go around contacting everybody they see him, Jian Ghomeshi, interacting with on Facebook, contacting his ex-girlfriend saying, hey, I've heard that Jian is really abusive to his girlfriends. Have you ever had anything like that happen to you? And they contacted tons of people. He actually was told about this by ex-girlfriends going, whoa, there's some journalists going around, contacting people trying to get allegations against you. And they were being told what types of things they were looking for in terms of accusations. And out of all the number of people they contacted, he only ended up with a few who were willing to join into this little game. And it was a game. It was a collusion of ex-girlfriends or wannabe girlfriends who all thought, yeah, let's take this guy down. And literally that came out in court, these conversations, let's take him down.
Yeah.
So the Toronto Star broke the story with all of these multiple accusers. They had actually just 4 that they stood by saying these people are credible when they ran the first story. And then, of course, all these other ones came out of the woodwork. I think some of them are already waiting behind the scenes to make allegations as soon as the story was published.
Well, it was.
I think coming out of the woodwork is an appropriate phrase, because when I talked to Vito about this previously, the analogy that I use, it's very similar to what happened in the late 80s with the child sexual abuse moral panics with the McMartin preschool. And what happened there was a mentally ill mother claimed that her child was molested, and the police went to investigate, as they should. But what they did was they put out this general feeler saying, parents, if you think your kids have been molested, come forward. And it's the same kind of thing that Jesse Brown put out this feeler, kind of shaping, saying this is the sort of thing that we're looking for. But even with that, he could only get a handful of people.
Right.
I know. Actually, I'm surprised he didn't get more than he did.
From just the bandwagon effect.
Yeah. And then the public outcry, basically, the police ended up making an announcement, hey, look, we can't do anything about this because nobody's come to the police. So they said, please, please come to the police and make a complaint, and then we can do something. So they got a few people who did that, and of course, with the public demand, they had to press charges, and they didn't really do much of an investigation at all. The whole investigation has a #believe feeling to it, right? And they even announced, a woman representing the Toronto Police Services announced that their policy was to absolutely believe an accuser. So
That's scary.
you know,
She actually said that as a matter of policy.
as a matter of policy, yeah. So then we finally have actual criminal charges that were laid against Jian. The CBC had dropped him actually before the Toronto Star story was printed, because he was being harassed by these journalists, threatened by them, living with this fear that all these horrible allegations were going to be published for a long time. And then he cracked and told the CBC about, basically gave them a heads up or a warning on it. And their assessment was, okay, we can't handle this type of he was the face of the CBC in a way. So.
Well, yeah, I was downtown at the CBC at the car show. I was working the car show, and I saw them take down. He used to have. There was giant posters of Jian Ghomeshi, and I was there when they were taking them down. Like ripping these posters down. Just thinking, holy shit! Like this guy was top of the world. It was like something out of a movie. It was like this guy was top of the world in Canada, and then now he's just been, like get rid of him. This guy's fucking bad news. Like holy shit, and everybody, like I totally believed. I thought, what a piece of shit. He did that to women. He was like remember that big stink with Dave Letterman? But no, I'm not trying to. Remember when they said Dave Letterman would use the show to get laid? He had like a special.
And he had some dalliances with.
He had a special room.
Yeah.
He had a special room where he would take these women and have sex with them, and everybody was told, hey, that's you don't rat on Letterman. That's how you move up in the world. You just keep your mouth shut. And that's how it kind of felt with the Ghomeshi thing, where it was like.
And he walked from that, and he went forward with it. But that's more egregious than what Ghomeshi actually did.
Right.
Well, what I recall about David Letterman was that he decided he was going to. He felt like he was being blackmailed, and he said, "I'm going to take away the stuff that they're blackmailing me with." And so he made an announcement to the public that he'd had affairs and that he'd acted inappropriately, and but that to paint it in any sinister way was incorrect, right? So he pulled what I call an 8 Mile, right?
Yeah.
Where you just say whatever somebody's got on you say it yourself, and then you say, so what are you going to do?
I wish Ghomeshi did that.
You say it and you minimize it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you kind of feel sorry. Stick. It's kind of, remember that whole thing where, God, everybody was like fucking cheating on each other, and they would just come out and say, I'm sorry, I screwed up, and everybody would be like, oh, So I wish Ghomeshi did that. It would have been, hey, yeah, but it was. But he had so many women come after him. Like with the Letterman case, I didn't see any women go after Letterman.
I don't remember the details of what he had, but I thought
it was some guy, it was some disgruntled guy that wanted to screw Letterman out of millions of dollars or something, and I totally get it. It was like a scene from what was that movie where the guy goes, I think it was Batman, where the guy figures out who Batman is, goes and sees the newspaper or the guy who works for Batman. It says, I want $10 million a year, that whole bit. And then the guy just says, so you want to get $10 million a year off a guy who kills people for a living? You know what I mean? It was just like, you actually think you're going to get this from him?
Batman doesn't kill people.
No, well, he does. Well, don't watch. You're watching the cartoon version. There's these adult ones. So,
to what extent did Ghomeshi try to get out in front of this? Because I have the sense that even if he tried to get out in front of this was a full-blown moral panic witch hunt. That it would have been impossible for him to really do that, and that's backed up by the fact that. Just to skip to the end, that even when he was exonerated, the women that accused him are still repeating their accusations in the media.
I know, it's stunning, and people still have the hashtag believe approach to women who were shown to have lied under oath.
Yeah,
and
like
intentionally misled police.
like
That was admitted in court. Intentionally misled police, and yet they're still being called victims. That's
yes, that
crazy.
is that is that is the really fucked up sad part of this. And what
Well,
like, Kevin
Well,
Donovan, he worked for the Star. Does he still work for the Star?
who?
Kevin Donovan.
Kevin Donovan, unfortunately, yes, and he's a highly respected journalist. That's also unfortunate.
So didn't he team up with Jesse Brown?
He was assigned by the Toronto Star to work with Jesse because it
Okay.
was Jesse's story. Jesse was the main contact person for all the women, and he'd been working on it for months already. And the Star thought, well, if this turns out to be something that's publishable, it can't be something that's done by Jesse, who's so sloppy it's hard to call him a journalist. So they basically assigned Kevin Donovan to clean up Jesse's act enough that they could potentially publish something.
Diana, what's a rough timeline of this? Because it goes from starting out with Jesse Brown and being tried in the court of public opinion, and then it actually goes into a court.
I know, and stayed in court once the women were revealed to have been lying.
Well, how did that come about that they were revealed to be lying? Because, as you said, the charges against him were assault and overcoming resistance by suffocation or strangulation or
Choking to overcome
choking.
Yeah,
choking
let's
to
get to that
overcome
for one
resistance.
sec. Like he
Now-
really is like Diana. Like he had a teddy bear. Can you explain what the whole thing with Jian was? Like what he would.
Well, first of all, you have to understand that as a celebrity, the public feels they have the right to celebrities' sex lives. That they should be told all of these little dirty secrets and small bits and pieces, but they feel the need and that they're owed some sort of, the celebrity has no privacy rights, basically. So Jian Ghomeshi was becoming a celebrity really fast and refused to tell anybody about his dating life or his sex life, and when the public was ripped off. So as soon as any allegations about him, any information about his sex life came out, it basically, as far as I'm concerned, escalated the accusations into a big aha gotcha moment for the public, and they wanted to make as big a deal out of it as possible.
So was this something that was going on for years, that there were these bits and pieces that they were digging into his sex life? I mean, not that they were finding anything, but the fact that he didn't discuss it for years, it caused this sort of background of curiosity?
Oh, absolutely. There was actually a journalist hired by, I think, Toronto Life to do a story basically, interviewing, I think it was 11 ex-girlfriends that he was aiming to try and talk to. And they wanted to do a story about his dating life.
Oh,
he
fuck.
was made aware of this because
Could you imagine going to
his actual ex-girlfriends don't have ill will towards him. So when they were being contacted, they would always notify him and say, hey, Jian, people are asking me questions about dating you. And so he contacted Toronto Life and said, or his agent did, and said, look, apparently you want to do a story on us. We're not interested in seeing a story where you go interview all his ex-girlfriends. So how about we give you a better interview? Like, actually, we'll sit down. You can go through a day in the life of Jian. And so they agreed to that, and they did a different story. But yeah, he'd been trying to keep people out of his sex life for a long time.
And what do you expect to find when you start interviewing a guy's ex-girlfriend?
That's what I mean.
That's a
All
little
you
more
got to
than
do is
fishing
interview.
expedition.
All you have to do is interview one of mine, and it's over. Okay, never mind 11. That's insane. Okay, it's called an X for a reason.
Yeah, well, celebrities are actually really specifically vulnerable to false accusations because there's a lot of attention that can be got from it, and there's a desire for people to get in on this big sensationalistic story.
But
so,
Diana, if
And
you
this
ask
Ghomeshi
10 guys,
is kind of a turnstile. I mean, he's a hub for people coming and going. He's a focal point.
mm-hmm.
So he has a lot more interaction than a normal person would.
I think in terms of my skepticism and allegations, unless you're like a best friend of somebody who's saying they've been sexually assaulted, in which point you should say, oh, wow, let's talk about it. Do you feel okay? And you just absolutely just take them at their word. But these aren't friends of mine, and so I take the skeptical approach is like, okay, you want me to believe something you're saying? Well, first of all, I want to know who you are
Right.
and why I should find you believable, right?
But
when it's a celebrity, you have to exercise that skepticism even more.
yes, exactly. But it's the thing for me. It's like, okay, even if you were a great person, like the best dad or best girlfriend or whatever, you're still talking to an ex that there's a reason why they're an ex. And I understand two or three are going to say, hey, we didn't get along, it didn't work out. But you're going to get a couple that'll go, you know what, I hate them. I absolutely hate them. This is, we went to the movies once and he did this, and there's a reason why. It's like let's go in your like in your dating pool and talk to people that you've been with, and it seems like Ghomeshi, the only crime Ghomeshi has is he got bored of people, and just didn't want to tie himself down to one person. So
Right.
that I think that's the only crime he had. So you're going to get people that are jaded and say he didn't spend the time with me, and that came out in court with this guy that
Right.
he wasn't spending so much time with his girlfriends, and they were getting really annoyed at him about that.
And am I wrong in thinking that?
Published an article saying that she dated him for 5 months and he wouldn't even take his shirt off in front of her,
Right.
and that she, finally just gave up trying to get any sort of, sexual action with him. He was extremely cautious, and that's probably the only reason he survived this whole thing in court, is because he was, cautious, and he did keep emails, and I think probably recognized that he was a big target. He's a public person, and he's aware of what that means and the possibility that people might be out to get him. So his paranoia actually is probably the only thing that saved him. And that paranoia is the reason why he didn't just jump. Like, I was going, okay, listen to these allegations. You got a guy who's kept his sex life out of the media despite their persistence on trying to get that story for years. If he was going around punching strangers in the head, how the fuck was he going to keep his sex life private? There's
Right.
no way these things could have simultaneously been taking place.
Right.
And in the case of, the rough outlines is the primary accuser was a woman named Lucy DeCoutere.
Oh God.
Well, the face of the accusers was
The face of the
Oh,
accusers. Now, as the face of the accusers, you could say she was a former girlfriend, but actually it seems as though her problem was not that Ghomeshi, had sex with her and disposed of her. He just never had it all.
Yeah,
And this is going back to 2003, I think it was. She's reaching back over a decade
Right.
for the claims that she's making of abuse by him. And stop me if I'm wrong here, but one of the impressions that I get from looking at cases of false accusations, especially about sexual assault and especially sexual harassment, is that it's born out sometimes of sense of rejection.
Oh, big time. With her,
Yeah.
You've rejected me, and by saying you are sexually harassing or stalking me, I am actually reaffirming to myself that in a perverse way you still want me. This was the thing with the Karen Stolznow case with Ben Radford.
yes.
You obviously arose out of that. So you got DeCoutere, who never had a relationship with Ghomeshi that we really know of. He didn't actually sleep with her. She feels rejected. Then there's a couple of other accusers, and their stories are, well, first of all, their stories are very similar for an important reason that Ghomeshi's lawyer uncovered, which, although they claimed that they had never had contact with each other, what were they doing?
Yeah, well, actually, there was an article published by a writer named Leah McLaren who claims that she was a friend of Jian's, although her behavior highly, makes that highly doubtful that she was ever actually a real friend of his, because what she did was horrendous in that article. She even
Explain
published
what
an
she
email
did.
that she received from him after his father's death and tried to paint that as somehow creepy, and published an email written in grief
Ugh.
from a supposed friend. It's just hideous behavior. But that article actually tells us in it that Lucy DeCoutere organized a covert network
Yes.
of accusers. She uses the word covert.
Yes. I saw that you
really
made a video. You made a video of her, which I've never wanted to fucking reach out and slap somebody. I mean, like literally, she was just there. There's an awesome video you made about her wanting to be, like what was that saying she said that. Like, first of all, she thinks she's a.
I want to be the sexual assault victims what Armani is to, or what David Beckham is to Armani underwear.
Oh fuck! Say that again. Sorry.
Strange fucking analogy.
What a horrible fucking thing she said. Say that again, please.
That she wanted to be to sexual assault victims what David Beckham is to Armani underwear.
Yeah, like, and then she goes on and says, I'm kind of free that week, so I lend my name.
So what actually happened was a guy named Nobu Edelman. He's from his father was a really well-known journalist. Him and his brother Mio Edelman have both been huge, like integrated and born into the media scene. Anyways, they both worked at CBC. Nobu was a friend of Lucy DeCoutere's and also a friend of Jesse Brown's. He contacted Lucy to help his good friend Jesse Brown out. Contacted Lucy and said, "Hey Lucy, you might have a story that you feel like you could tell to our good friend Jesse Brown."
Oh,
so
man.
her accusation was actually drawn out of her, and in a podcast that I found, and I think she was talking to a cousin of hers or something, and she actually explains that she was in an abusive relationship with another guy only a few years ago, and that she was so psychologically damaged by this guy that she decided she wanted to do something to stop abusive men in the world in general. Basically, she had taken on some sort of a martyr complex.
Yeah.
Right.
So she was sort of like a vigilante who went out against the people that harmed her by shooting random strangers.
Yeah. Every horrible thing she did to Jian Ghomeshi with her lies was an attempt to find justice in the world for women who'd been hurt by other men. It didn't matter if it was Jian or if it wasn't Jian.
But I think I don't.
Willing to turn him into.
Oh, that oddly enough, I've experienced that where you get something, and not from women in general, but a certain type of mental state that actually thinks that way. That will say, a man abused me, and so now I'm going to generalize it to you.
But I don't think that happened to her. Like, this is my impression of Lucy DeCoutere. I think she's a fame whore. That fame, she had a little bit of fame from that show. That show, she doesn't have any more fame from it. And this is a way of getting her name back on, like, as sick as that sounds, back on TV, back on newspapers. I mean, if I was a celebrity, I would say, I want to be out there as positive. If I'm a comic, I want positive stuff. I want people to sit there and say he's funny or great actor or whatever. For her, I don't really believe any of this shit that comes out of her mouth, because she seems like a person that, honest to God, looks like the screws are loose. Lights are.
She's not dealing in the same reality as the rest of us.
No, not at all.
In that interview, when she's talking about wanting to be, the underwear model for the David Beckham for sexual assault victims, her effect, her attitude is just way off.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Someone who's lacking in any kind of self-awareness.
Yes, exactly. It's disgusting.
One of the first things she did after she made her allegations was hire a publicist.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
See, to me that
become the face of sexual assault victims.
Oh, yes, because your career is nowhere. You have no career. She couldn't act if you've seen her on a show, she couldn't act at all. I think she got the gig because she was around the corner. They needed somebody. They just said, "Does anybody at the coffee shop here? Can you read a script?" And
that essence of trailer trash to her, which is what they were looking for.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. She played the character of herself. It wasn't a stretch. Okay?
Right.
It really
No.
wasn't. So she plays this fucking horrible character, which turns out to be her. And then once that fame is gone, when you don't get invited to, to festivals and stuff like that, because you haven't been on TV in 6 or 7 years, and you're not that big of a deal when you walk down the street. I mean, if you saw her walk down the street, she's not an attractive woman. Okay, you don't sit
Yeah.
there and go, "Wow, look at that." She's like, I'm not trying to completely shit on her looks, but she's nobody special. You're not going to
Well,
sit.
the thing about her is that you have to look at the way that people present and what might actually be behind the mask. And underneath that kind of giggly, superficial, facetious exterior, she may well be, and I'm not a psychiatrist and I don't play one on TV. She may be a grievance collector. And in the case of Ghomeshi, she made a play for a high status male who didn't give her the time of day.
Right.
I don't know how long that festered in her head, but again, it's behind that giggly exterior.
I think it's a sickness where you just sit there and go, you know what? I used to be with this person. I'm not as famous as I used to be, but yet this person is famous all the time. There was a point when you could turn on TV and Jian Ghomeshi would be on there all the time. Okay? He really would. He was like their top dog. So when you're not working like 6 or 7 years or whatever, she just was not out at the level of a Jian Ghomeshi. And she just seems like an evil person. I'm sorry. She just to me seems like a very evil, vindictive person, and thought, this is a great way of getting my name out there and fucking destroying this man. Okay?
Right. Well, she was making a play for a guy who is quite frankly out of her league, but she doesn't want to think of anyone being out of her league. I mean, there's a lot of bruised ego.
Yeah, like
that
John,
goes
I
along
don't
with her
get.
accusation.
Yeah.
And the proof, but also too, there's something. The women that make these kind of false accusations, for me, fall into three broad categories, which are they're unethical, that they're somehow seeking some gain from doing this. They're just simply mentally ill in some way, or they're vindictive.
I think it's a combination. I think it's a combination of all of that.
Another element, actually, and this is an important element to look at, is that, and you can see this a lot with Ghomeshi, as soon as somebody tells you that they were assaulted by somebody and that they're a creep, then you go back in your mind and think about all the interactions you had with the person, and they become altered memories.
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, what this is it's like, and I've used this in cases where someone got a misapprehension of me, or they thought that I was this way, and you could see that they were filtering everything that I did from that point on. There's a study called On Being Sane in Insane Places, where basically a bunch of reporters, researchers, got themselves into a psych ward by feigning mental illness, schizophrenia.
Yes.
Once they got on the ward, they started acting perfectly normally. They're walking around, they're talking to people, they're taking notes, blah, blah, blah. They're going up to someone saying, okay, and what about your mother? Okay, and they're writing it down. The staff looks at what they're doing and says, obsessive note-taking behavior. It's labeling theory.
Yeah. It was
this is the pernicious thing about what Diana's talking about, which is once you apply that's creepy label, and you start interpreting things either that creepy or malice or something, there's no way for the person to escape from that.
Here's the thing: what you got to do, and it's incredibly embarrassing. I've had a girl say that I've assaulted her. Now, this is what happened. How I found out was through another person that confronted me saying, "How can you hit a woman?" Which I was breaking up with this person. I thought, all right, I need to call the police because I need to move my stuff. In front of the police and the other guy, I told her, I said, you've better admit right now, did I touch you? Did I ever assault you? And she said no. As embarrassing as that is, you have to do that because that person will always see you as, hey, she said that you assaulted her. And there's nothing you can do. I'm fucking twice the size of her. You know,
Right.
I mean, you're kind of sitting there saying, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I hit guys all the time, but a woman? Are you fucking kidding me?" You know, and it's an embarrassing thing, okay? And I think for Jian, incredibly embarrassing, and it
Well,
just snowballed more and more for this guy.
well, I've had personal experience with this, and I did a video of this. I dated a woman for a while that was borderline personality, and once I broke up with her, she made a bunch of accusations that I, broke into her apartment and terrorized her on a day that I was videotaping everything because we were looking for a cat for her mother.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I get a call from an Arlington County police detective, and I don't know if he's just doing it this way because this is his interview style, but I mean, from the first moment, it's clear he's taking her perfectly seriously,
Ugh.
and I'm in the position.
Yeah.
I'm in the position. One, I'm trying to dispute something, and I don't even know what the hell she's talking about. In fact, she said I put pictures of her on the internet, and it took a long time to figure out what she was talking about. And I put this in the video. Was a film that I did of Rock Creek Cemetery with her walking around silhouetted in the background.
Yes, I remember that.
All she has to say is he put pictures of me on the internet. And you know what the cop is thinking? It's the same thing I was thinking, and I couldn't figure it out.
You are.
So, I mean, how do you dispute charges when they're not even clear?
But you're so lucky you did that.
Jian Ghomeshi, there's no trail because they're talking about things in 2015, 2016 that happened in 2003.
Yeah.
How do you possibly dispute that? I mean, it becomes clear. He said, she said.
He wasn't being told who they were. So what
he wasn't being told who they were. And as a he said, she said, it's already skewed because they've already said they believe the accuser.
Here's an element to their ploy, though. They told him that some women had made accusations, and what they would have loved would have been for him to have guessed who, so that they would have another name of a person to contact.
Oh. Right? Wow, that's classic witch hunt stuff. That's right out of the belly.
But Mykeru, you are incredibly lucky that you did that. I mean, because if you watch the video, and I've watched it a couple times, she's laughing with you, she's having a good time. It's wonderful, and the accusation, you're sitting there, you're listening to this, saying, how can you? First of all, how can you say something like that? You're having a wonderful time, and all of a sudden, what the fuck goes through your head? And you are lucky that you did that.
Well, we've had this conversation before, and when someone does that to you, you got to ask yourself, what kind of investment did they have in you in the first place? And I think, in terms of talking about objectification, I think it's clear that these women that accused Ghomeshi, they had objectified him a long time ago. He was a trophy, a goal, a target.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted something from him and they didn't get it. But the problem is that once you have all these other people saying, "Oh, he's really abusive and he's really creepy," and
see,
then
and that's a big
that they were abused.
Yeah.
So it's not just that they're all lying. Some of them, honestly, probably.
Well, here's the thing. It's the
they were abused when they weren't.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It's like the Bill Cosby thing. I used to love Bill Cosby. My first album I ever bought was a Bill Cosby. Okay, absolutely adore him. And I didn't want to believe it, but after about the 20th person, you're sitting there saying, something's not right here. Disney just took his statue down. They had a meeting about this. They talked about it, saying, first of all, the statue cost, thousands and thousands of dollars. It's been here for years. It's Bill Cosby. People take pictures of Bill Cosby here, and he's on the news. Women are saying he has fucking raped them and abused them. We got to take this down, guys. This isn't just, 4 or 5 women. This is, what are we up to, 50 now? It is absolutely. So that is in the back of the mind. And then, Jian Ghomeshi comes along. You're like, holy shit, I guess when you turn into a celebrity, you think you could do whatever you want, and you could fucking slap around women and assault them.
I mean, I'm sure you have more opportunities, because I don't know if these are legitimate or not, but I've seen these sort of social experiment videos where they convinced some women, hanging around a place that a guy is famous when he's not, and they flock to him.
Right.
He becomes.
Well, I've done that all the time. I going out on dates, I would put my DVD in the adult store, not the adult, like I would put it in. It was like a big. Back then, remember going into a DVD, like it wasn't Blockbuster. It was like their own little store, and I would take my DVDs, ask the guy who owned the place, say, "Can I put my DVDs there?" Go on a date with a girl, just go, "Hey, walk by the comedy section," and there would be my DVD that was professionally done. She would think, it was a great way of getting laid, because all of a sudden people kind of think, "Oh, you're kind of successful. You're a celebrity in a way." And it is smooth, but it's sad because you look at it and you just think
the same person.
Exactly.
You're the same on the date. You're telling the same stories. You're doing the same things. What difference should it make?
Hey,
but it does.
I borrowed my buddy's $150,000 car. Okay. And the looks that I got compared when I was, driving around in my regular car, which is okay, but fuck, you're driving around. You would be the status you have. Pull up in Toronto, and I'm sure, Diana, you've seen it in Vancouver, where you have a beautiful Lamborghini by a coffee shop. You park it outside, and you can stand by it, and all of a sudden, good-looking, attractive people want to talk to you. It's just a thing of success.
They should you should automatically just write them off. I mean, I had a car that was like 16 years old. It was a Toyota that I bought in Las Vegas in like '94, and I took very good care of it. Very, very tight on the maintenance schedule. Had it repainted. Wasn't a beater by any stretch of the imagination. I dated a woman for a while who looked at it, and I love this car because it never failed to start ever. Until it threw a rod and self-destructed. But she looked at it and she said, "If we start dating seriously, you really have to get a new car."
Oh fuck!
And I thought to myself, "Yeah, you're gone."
Yeah, exactly.
What difference does that make?
I went out with a girl, and she was very good looking. And what she did was, when I used to have a Mazda 323, that beast. I mean, this little fucking thing. If you were doing, I never got a speeding ticket, put it that way. Okay, little Mazda 323, and all my other friends had Mustangs, of course being Genos. They had IROCs. A couple had Vets. And the girl said to me on a date, she said, "Thank you for not blaring the radio and listening to what I have to say." Because guys would get the girl in the car. I never understood this. Get the girl in the car, and you have to show them how loud your system is, how many thousands of dollars.
Didn't have anything to
Yeah,
say.
and how fast, and you have nothing to say. What there's, for me, I'd rather turn off the radio and have a conversation. And she really appreciated that. And
Diana, didn't one of Ghomeshi's accusers have some car trouble?
Well, one of them had some trouble remembering what car he drove. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, there was.
I mean, getting back to the case, you had a bunch of witnesses that they made accusations against him. They didn't remember sending him up. Now, the excuse is that victims of sexual assault don't all behave the same. But you have people, women, writing to him after the supposed assault, saying, "I love your hands. I miss you. I love you," stuff like that.
And this is Lucy DeCoutere, that one, and she also practically proposed marriage to him
after he supposedly slapped her around.
Even have another date with her. It's so embarrassing for her. I can see why she had this animosity towards him. In reflection, how embarrassing her own behavior was. Right.
Well, did you see in that the video you made when she said something, the interviewer said something like, "Well, he's got a new he fired his old agent or something," and she's just kind of like, "Oh, he did." Remember that? It was kind of like
sympathy. Yeah. She's just like, "Oh, he's got to be hurting right now," and she said that there was a gleefulness in her expression, while out of her mouth were coming these words like, I feel so bad for him.
Yeah, yeah, and you could see it. You can absolutely see it. Diane, did you get the pictures of me in the bikini, the thong? Because I don't remember sending it to you.
Yeah, that's another accuser who forgot that she had sent a picture of her in a bikini.
Yes,
You had another accuser who gave this detailed description of shenanigans that happened around Ghomeshi's yellow Volkswagen Beetle,
So that's
and saying,
right.
and even saying, you know, he had this car, so I thought he was trustworthy. I thought, guy who has this car, I mean, why? And then it turns out he bought that car months after.
Yes.
The supposed assault occurred.
Yes. I mean, it's really, really fucked up. I mean, sending a person a picture of yourself in a bikini, you can't remember that. What you just said about the car. I mean, these are things that you've got to sit back and watch this. It's disturbing.
You have a bunch of witnesses or accusers who are. Now, this goes over great with the jury, and this is why it's so diabolical what they did, which is they said, well, you know, the stories that they're telling have more or less the same outline. You know, it shows a pattern of behavior, and what was not revealed was that the witnesses, particularly DeCoutere, they said they had never had any contact with each other, and then it turns out that they're sending 5,000 emails to each other.
Holy shit.
They're shaping their story.
Yes.
I mean, it's like a support group where we're saying, this is, and I don't know what involvement Jesse Brown had in this, but this is the general shape of the story that we're having. And you have them talking about gleeful, talking about how they hope that Ghomeshi gets fat in jail.
Yes, getting fat in jail. How disgusting is that? I mean, he could get he could get raped, killed in jail. That's what goes through their mind. I mean, what do you think jail is? A vacation?
Well, this is. I mean, Diana, when you're talking about someone who's doing a false accusation like this, I get the impression, and this actually comes from an article that Ben Radford referenced in his own case. A lot of the times that women who make these false accusations don't really, they minimize the consequences that they're doing it. They don't expect someone to go to jail for 30 years, but that's what, I mean, this is how it starts, and this is how a guy ends up going to jail for 5 or 30 years.
And it was the same thing with Stolzno.
But they just have this sort of narrow goal of humiliation and retribution.
Yes, the thing with Stolzno, it was the same thing of rejection, where she thought Ben didn't want to, but like this is the thing that absolutely, like as a man, I mean, we all know, I don't think Diane would know of Baxter, but if you find out, Diana, that your partner went behind your back to talk to Mykeru, and wanted to have an affair while you guys are getting married soon, and it's okay that you can have an affair. You're telling Mykeru, this is going to be okay. This will be our kind of secret. Okay? Matthew doesn't know. How the fuck how do you think of that person now? You know, this is a sneaky snake of a person. And this is the same thing. You have a Stolzno and a DeCoutere, Lucy, same cut from the same cloth. Okay?
Right.
It's disgusting.
Right. Well, this started out as like the women making the accusations they didn't go to the police, they went to the media, and they did not have in mind sending him to jail. They just had in mind destroying his reputation for fun and amusement, as it turns out.
This is not something that's just sort of accidental that it, you know, kind of happens. In the Stolzno case, she vilified Ben Radford in the court of public opinion and the skeptic community. And the moment that she was at the threshold of actually walking into a court, and as I put it, playing chicken with perjury, then she backed out and recanted. In the Ghomeshi cases, these women, they had absolutely, they thought that they were actually going to be able to go into court and lie their way through it.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Lucy tells us at one point that she was getting feedback from the public saying, if this really happened, and we believe you that it did, then he needs to go to jail. And so she said, well, they were demanding of me that I up my ante, that I up my game. And so she went to the police.
Do you remember she said the next day or something she was sleeping like a baby? Here's she was going to be questioned by Ghomeshi's lawyer, and I mean I would be nervous as shit. I don't care if I was 100% right, because lawyers, there's some lawyers that can, they could play head games with you, and I'd be worried. I'd be going, maybe they could, kind of fuck me up in a way while I'm up there. And she thought the way she acted, it was like, this is a game. I slept like a baby. I'm like, she has no idea how badly she looks now.
Well, she says, I mean, first of all, she is just fronting big time, and every time I've seen her speaking. But Diana, I mean, do you think that the accusers had a false sense of confidence based on, one, the absolute lack of investigation done by the prosecutors and police, and two, they didn't realize how good Ghomeshi's lawyer was?
Oh, yeah.
It didn't matter what happened in court. They had been primed for this by the #Believe crowd in the social justice forum of the court of public opinion.
So they just thought all they had to do was show up.
Yeah, and actually him not getting convicted would prove their case even more, right? Sexual assaulters don't go to jail. So it was a no-lose situation. And you can see that, despite all the evidence that came out and how terribly they were discredited, even admitting that they lied in the case of the third complainant, that they still have their #Believe followers.
Now, it's a decision where I don't know if the judge actually used the term, but he veered really close to actually, and this is rare in jurisprudence, actually using the term lying and liar.
I don't know if he did.
I don't think he did, but he came really close.
Yeah, as close as he could get. But the other evidence that this was all a game was Lucy DeCoutere in that 5,000 email correspondence thing said, "This is theater at its best. I was made for this."
Oh, yeah, like what a fucking dingbat. I was talking to you yesterday about this. I said, how much do you think Jian Ghomeshi earned a year working at the CBC? And you said maybe $1 million, and I could see that. I could see that. Now you've taken away this guy's. Think about this. They destroyed him. Yeah. Well, think about waking up in the morning and going to work and enjoying going to work, and I guarantee you that's what Jian loved. Going to work, waking up in the morning, getting a coffee. I'm going to work. I'm going to a place where they pay me a lot of money to just have fun. Okay, and it really is. There's no fucking heavy lifting in that. And we've all been into a job where we all pray that we get into an accident, so we don't have to show up for our shitty jobs. So you've taken away this man's enjoyment. You've taken away his livelihood. He'll never have that back.
This is something that wasn't just kind of bestowed upon him. Didn't he rise up from being a performer and a group?
Yeah, he did.
He did, himself. But I mean, he got where he was on the basis of hard work, charisma, and whatever quality that he had.
But the CBC was grooming him.
Now he's completely destroyed, because even if he was acquitted in court, which he was, the accusers, their mission is accomplished.
Right. And where's Jian? Where's his show? Where's Q? Where's the money? I
think all evidence points to Jian Ghomeshi having been a workaholic who suffered from anxiety. So to say that he had this dream job, he was waking up every morning excited to go to where he was, I think, I did work in the entertainment industry and the film industry for a while and television.
The adult section, I know.
It is not glamorous. It really isn't. It's stressful. There's high pressure, like on a film set. Every 10 minutes costs them, tens of thousands of dollars. So, like, you can be sitting around for an hour while they're lighting a film set, and then all of a sudden, when they say they're ready to go, if I had to do, makeup touch-ups that took more than 5 minutes, it was all just people screaming at me. You know what I mean?
Right.
High pressure environment. But would be working in the middle of a rainstorm trying to make it look like it wasn't raining.
That's when you pull a Christian Bale. Put that fucking light down. just I love it when Bale lost it in front of everybody, and everybody thought, well, how can he be an idiot and do that? And I'm thinking, I've seen guys do that, no problem. There is a lot of pressure, yes, of course, but I think if you have a job like that, you're gonna love it.
I mean, even without the pressure of the money and the fame and everything, I know from doing theater, when I had to run through a scene, because I had this director who would ring a little bell when he didn't believe you, and we'd start over. When you have to do the thing 25 times, and which is typical in making a film, you just want to go batshit insane. And so if someone screws it up for you one more time, they're going to become your personal chew toy.
Yeah, but it's
Ghomeshi, it didn't seem to. I can see how there was pressure on him to produce, to get new guests, to keep the ratings up. But in the context of the show that he was doing, I would think it would be a little more laid back.
Yeah, but here the thing with what I mean is, I think he really loved his job. I know it's stressful, and I know that fuck, anything could be stressful.
Well,
but
whether or not he loved his job, whether he loved his job or he hated his job, he was indifferent towards his job. He did his job well or not. It wasn't up to these women to take it from him.
Yes. Yes. And I don't think, here's the thing, I don't think he's going to have another job like that.
No.
So you've really fucked him up.
But Diane, what do you assume is the psychology of the kind of person who is getting this kind of vicarious pleasure?
A witch.
From destroying someone in this manner. And really, when you look at what Ghomeshi did, really all he did was, he didn't even quite reject them. He just didn't
give a shit about them. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
They wanted, which was their ideal image of what it would be like to be Jian Ghomeshi's girlfriend.
Right.
That they had in mind, I can go date a celebrity and he's got lots of money, and so we can go, fancy places and spend lots of money and be the envy of everybody who watches us, right?
Yeah.
And he was a more complex person who had, trust issues, and so they got rejected quickly and in a way that embarrassed them.
Do you think he has trust issues now?
I feel like hugging him. I swear.
Everyone, whenever this comes out with a false accusation, and I've said this before, there's a false accusation, and someone comes forward and says, "Oh, that was terrible that these women did this," because it's going to make it harder for real victims of whatever. Or conversely, someone will say, "Well, we can't really punish these women for their false accusations because it'll make it harder for real victims of..." No, it'll make it harder for false accusers to come forward.
Yeah.
And no one ever mentions, even offhand, thinks about it. This poor bastard that has been falsely accused, vilified, betrayed not only by these women who, for some bizarre reason, thought that they had some vested interest in him, but the very people that put him there in the first place, the very people that he thought of would support him, just threw him under the bus. I mean, the sense of betrayal, it must be awesome.
That there are slimy people willing to do terrible things in order to somehow get some sort of better feeling about themselves or some victim complex met. The biggest problem that I can imagine he'd be facing is that people that he believed to be his friends turned on him so quickly, so thoroughly, and so viciously.
Yeah. Like, did you see when all of a sudden all the people that worked on Q would come out? And I'm like, who the fuck, why are you talking to the piss bucket boy? Who gives a shit? It's all of a sudden everybody came out of the woodwork to be like, he's a terrible guy. He did this or he did that. And I'm thinking, I've been on sets where just the actor is concentrating on his job. And even when you're setting up a radio thing, even when I was before even talking to you guys, I get a little nervous. I do. Even though this is pre-recorded, I still sit there and go, oh, geez, I get little butterflies. Now, could you imagine being on, the number one show? People are there. People are depending on you. Every word you said is being taped. I mean, the last thing you're thinking about is the fucking paper boy, okay? Really, that's just the way it is. He never made eye contact with me. We bumped in.
On that show did a lot of heavy lifting behind the scenes, but his job was different. They're trying to compare it like we did more work, and it's like the talent of somebody to go on live air and deal with any crisis like Billy Bob Thornton or whatever. To be
and he tends to be a major crisis in interviews. But isn't that always the case that you have the person who's the figurehead for the show. He's the face of the show. And then you get a bunch of people who are interns and producers and things like that running around because Jian Ghomeshi doesn't have time to make phone calls to arrange for the next guest and deal with their publicist and shit like that. That's why you get paid.
Yeah, and I totally understand that. Like, I don't give a shit if he doesn't. Just be happy you're there working. People would love to have that.
And I could see him working in reverse from what happened to me, which was, when I got slammed by all this crap from Stolz Now and YouTube and everything. And, the thing that pulled me out of that hole was the support of people I didn't even know were supporting me with technical assistance, with legal assistance. People came out of the woodwork in a good way to say, you actually meant something. Now, that's validating, and it's wonderful, and it actually pulled me out of that dark place like nothing else would have. On the other end of the spectrum, here's Ghomeshi. He's on top of things. He thinks everything's fine, and then he finds out that all these fucking people, who the decent thing would have been to support him, or at least do something that apparently is a practice for, which is benefit of the doubt, just sold him out.
Yeah.
There was a benefit of the doubt.
Due process? Fuck that.
It didn't last very long. It lasted for a couple of weeks, the benefit of the doubt phase.
Yeah.
It was really sad. But one of the big complaints from people that worked with him was that he took all the credit for their hard work.
Oh, fuck off. Who cares?
Everything that on his side of things, he was the one who had the public feeling a right to know everything about his sex life. And the pressures like that on you to try and live without any privacy in your life whatsoever. And I worked with a lot of celebrities when I was in the film industry, and I don't know how they did what they did, where you give up your rights to privacy.
You end up like Alex, what's his name, Baldwin, where you lose your mind whenever you see somebody with a camera. You completely lose your mind.
Yeah. I don't blame them.
Well, I don't blame them because one of the shitty things that paparazzi do, is what they'll do is they'll take a picture of they'll very quickly with a high-speed camera, someone coming out of a club, and if you've ever gone frame by frame, you could take anyone's video.
Oh yeah.
One of Diana's videos, one of yours, go frame by frame, and you pick the frame where someone's mouth is a little askew and their eyes are half open, and then you say, "Look at him, he's shit-faced.
Yeah.
He's on drugs." It's a cheap move, and and when you're a celebrity, that's the kind of thing that they're going to do to you.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
That guy? Daniel Radcliffe, I think it was. Props to him, because he came out, I think when he was doing Equus, he came out of the studio door wearing the same clothes every night. So that way the paparazzi couldn't sell the photos, because they say, wait, this is the same one as last time.
Well, I just heard he was a cheap little fucking kid.
No, I think he was fucking with him.
Yeah, people always think whoever Christopher Columbus didn't find wherever he landed, but people forget Christopher Columbus wasn't the first one out of the boat. It was some poor bastard that was rowing was the first guy that set foot on the new land, but he doesn't get the credit. It goes to the captain.
But that guy wouldn't have gotten his ass kicked by Queen Isabella if he went back with nothing.
Well, if he went back, could you imagine being in front of Queen Isabella and she's knighting Christopher, and all of a sudden he steps up, going, wait a minute, I just want everybody. Let's just get this straight.
There's that injustice all over the place. If you remember, Chewbacca never got a medal.
Yeah, and why is that?
Does in my mind.
Yeah. But it's like people, everybody wants to be. It's that whole thing of
it's Wookiee phobia. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah, and it's everybody's got that thing where I'm sure, Diane, when you were working with people, one of the nicest things, you're working away, but it's so nice when somebody would stop you and just say, hey, thank you, you're doing a wonderful job. Okay? And
You know what I found?
No, it isn't. No,
I
it
got
isn't.
along with most people I worked with, and one of the things that they liked about me was that when they arrived, they were just a person to me. They weren't a celebrity, and I always dealt with them like they were just a normal person. And there was this like huge relief for these people who are just a persona in everybody's mind, that nobody interacts with them, having a clue of who they really are. And I was more concerned with just dealing with them like a normal person. And in my mind, when you're a normal person, nobody knows who you are except for you. With
Right.
celebrities, for some reason, everybody thinks they know who you are.
right.
I mean, that's got to be a form of torture, really, if you think about it. If you're walking around and people come up to you and they start gushing and everything, and you just want to stop and say, you have no idea who I am. I mean, you think you know who I am, but you have no idea who I am. I mean, it's got to be kind of a lonely.
Yeah, but it's
way.
weird because here's the problem. They pretty much know you from movies, right? Now, if you could end up it being backfired, like a George Clooney. I'm not a big fan of George Clooney, but where people take advantage, where he thinks he's talking to some sick child that turns out to be some sick woman that just wanted to talk to him on the phone,
Yeah.
So celebrities get that thing where, I hear people say this all the time. Like, I talk to a few people and they're like, oh, that person's an asshole. Well, why? Because they've probably had a bad interaction with other people, where people just go, I'm a big fan of your work. Yeah, yeah, thanks. You sucked in that movie, by the way. Yeah, that scene you did. When you pretended to cry, were you thinking about your mom when she was dying for real? I mean, like, you just get the weirdest fucking people out there,
Well,
and you become this, you just close off people around you. And I notice they only, if you do get into their in their inner circle, you're like very important to them.
well, was Ghomeshi like that? You think, Diana, that he was kind of isolated or insulated by a celebrity?
Well, I don't know that he really got that big. I mean, he was certainly
Yeah.
his way, but I mean, I want to make it clear. I'm not saying like poor little rich boy. We should all
No.
feel sorry for them.
I
When
am.
you make choices in life, you compromise one thing
Right.
for something else. So,
Well,
I think the perspective to be had here is just that, well, he might have had lots of wealth and so on, and he might have been very successful. He just had more expensive beer to cry into at the end of the day. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and that's another thing, which is, I mean, people like Ghomeshi become exemplars. I mean, they're the ones that we point to because they're high profile. But there's a whole lot of guys who get accused of sexual harassment, things like that, who just aren't a blip on the radar and they suffer silently or they're destroyed silently.
Well, I get contacted by people all the time who tell me the story of their false accusers, right?
Mm-hmm.
It does happen a lot, and one of the advantages to not being a celebrity is that fewer people know about it, and fewer people form uninformed judgments about you. But on the other hand, a lot of these guys just can't afford a good enough lawyer to keep them in jail, right? So, although a case like Jian Ghomeshi's can bring attention to the problem that false accusations are real, they do happen. It's not really helping at the moment, helping the guys who can't afford Marie Hennen as a lawyer.
Well, the thing is that when I had this experience with my psycho ex-girlfriend, and people say, well, this does happen, as if it's a rarity. And at the time when my psycho ex-girlfriend pulled this on me, I thought she was an outlier. Now I think she's kind of mundane because, and this might just be my perception, but it seems as though this kind of false accusation, especially of something that's not necessarily sexual assault, but something as subjective as sexual harassment, whatever that is, especially if it's in the form of words or something like that, that's almost a go-to now, especially of the millennial generation. It's almost like it's been introduced into the playbook.
Yeah, well, I gotta have a smoke really soon.
Okay,
My
well, real
team
quick,
app.
I wanted to
I
ask
think
you.
this is a really important point to make, that the changes to the legal system in order to help victims of sexual assault have actually been changes that encourage and protect false accusers. So I don't know, nobody's ever properly done a study to determine how many false accusations happen, but I can tell you this, that false accusations are on the rise because it's easier for women to do that with impunity.
Oh yeah, and they just and there's no consequences. They tend to walk away, and
Yeah, like for the women that accused Jian Ghomeshi, they got nothing. They what did they get? Like I think a $300 fine or something.
It's ridiculous.
What do you think Diane should? I think they should go to jail.
No fine. No, there's no punishment for them.
I think the law needs to change. If you're going to accuse somebody and destroy them like that, they have the right to countersue and throw you in jail. I mean, if you lied about something so heinous like that and destroy a person, literally fucking destroy them, you deserve to go to jail. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, false accusations, from what I can see, is becoming a phenomenon, not just something that sometimes happens, but it's actually becoming a phenomenon. And I'm actually, today I spent a fair portion of the morning thinking about how to organize collection of data on false accusers to identify them and create an actual movement of, I think that false allegations of sexual misconduct should be a specific type of crime, not just, did they perjure themselves? Did they go this far? I think that it will actually help out actual victims of sexual assault to isolate and identify the people who are taking advantage of a system for vindictive reasons and bringing disrepute onto actual victims of assault. There's the motivation for that, but also it is a new category of crime that is growing, and we need to study it, we need to document it, and we need to figure out what to do about it.
Right. And with
especially since it seems to be, I mean, in some cases it's not just vindictive. I almost see it as reflexive at some point. That this is that people learn a playbook of things to say and things to shut people up and dirty tactics in fighting, and this just becomes a go-to.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you have a situation where we believe the accuser, then you don't even have to flesh it out. You don't even have to explain what the hell it is you're talking about. The accusation is enough.
The accusation is the verdict.
Right.
That's actually the name of a panel discussion I participated in recently. And that's where we're at. That's where we're at in society. The accusation is the verdict. We have no presumption of innocence. We have no protection for the accused against being, wrongfully accused and wrongfully convicted. We used to say that it was better to let 10 guilty men go free than to convict one innocent man. I would say 100 guilty men go free than convict one man, and that is reversed. We're willing to convict 100 innocent men in order to catch that one rapist.
Well, that's good, because if any guys had any doubt about their disposability, I mean, that should put it to rest. I mean, even Ghomeshi was disposable, if you think about it that way.
Well, I'm going to meet up with him in about 15 minutes. So, he's down at, I'll get him down at, where's that place? Broken Dreams Drive. That's where we're going. Broken Dreams. Folks, you're listening to the Wrecking Crew Comedy Podcast with Vito D'Amico and the one and only Mykeru. And we've got a great guest, Diana Davison. She has an amazing YouTube channel, Feminism LOL. Please check it out. And Diana, real quick, can people follow you on Twitter? And what do you have next? Like, what are you working on next?
Well, I kind of finished with that, actually. I want to put together a crew of people who are local so we can actually meet up and start, seriously documenting some of this stuff and organizing, assigning tasks to people. I actually want to start creating studies of false accusers so that they can be identified and persecuted better. That's kind of where I'm headed.
Yeah, you are a warrior. You really are.
And yes, you can follow me on Twitter. I actually do sort of use it, although not that much. I want to try and do a bit more of that. I'm at DeCoutere. D2 Davison, as in there's two D's in my name. D2 Davison.
Okay. Well, I'll put the link to that if you want. And
Yeah.
I'm going to put the link to, if anybody wants to see her work, I'm going to put the link to it. It'll be at the bottom. Check it out, and it will. It's really, really cool. She really works hard on these things, and that's why she has so many subscribers. Folks, I want you to enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm Vito D'Amico. Mykeru, say whatever you
I
need.
do.
And I'm
Good
Diana.
night, folks.
Yes, Mykeru. We'll work on the ending some other time. But folks, for the Wrecking Crew, I'm Vito D'Amico, Mykeru, and Diana. Thank you. Be well, be safe, and take care of each other.